All right then. Let's head out.
Head out. Nice one.
Sorry. Reflex. I used to be an asshole.
Yes, I can empathize.
I always love it when a video game gives me a strong personal connection to the protagonist. Hello everybody, I'm Private Hudson, and this is the 2013 reboot of Shadow Warrior. The original Shadow Warrior is remembered for all the wrong reasons. Many dismiss it for being nothing more than a sexist, racist Duke Nukem 3D clone. Granted, Lo Wang was a walking stereotype of every Asian culture combined, pronouncing his R's as L's, his L's as R's, and saying dumb shit like...
Just like poor Haba.
He also treated objects like women.
You want to wash Wang? Or you want to watch Wang wash Wang?
But all those people seem to forget the bigger picture here. Shooters in those days simply didn't give a fuck. That's why we had glorious games like Doom with all of its satanic imagery, and Duke Nukem that had titties everywhere. Shadow Warrior and other games like Blood perfected the maze-like level design of Doom, pushed the crude humor of Duke Nukem even further, and gave you weapons that required careful ammo management. You no longer had a shotgun with pretty much infinite ammo that was useful in 80% of the situations, like you did in Doom and Duke Nukem. You had to use the right weapon at the right time. After experiencing the abomination that was the Rise of the Triad reboot, I had no hopes for this game, even though it's done by a completely different studio, Flying Wild Hog, which is mostly made up of people who worked on the original Painkiller. I enjoyed their debut title, Hard Reset, but that game hardly blew me away. It was a 4-hour-long linear arena shooter with a checkpoint-based save system, despite being a PC exclusive, and overall felt more like a Painkiller knockoff than an actual genuine throwback. So, was I wrong in my prejudgment? Or were my instincts correct? Shadow Warrior is a much different game than the original. Lo Wang is no longer a walking offensive Asian stereotype. Instead, he's a much younger, rich badass who happens to work for the most powerful man on the planet. Humiliating women is no longer one of his pastimes, and that's probably for the best. Now, Lo Wang finds satisfaction through other means.
Listen, I'm a collector myself. More into comic books, but...
But don't worry, folks. While the game is definitely more politically correct, we still have our penis jokes.
Alright, motherfuckers. Who wants some Wang?
Lo Wang is an assassin who is sent out to buy an ancient sword for $2 million. The seller refuses, so he tries to take it by force. He ends up getting captured, but becomes freed when demons from another realm attack. Near the brink of death, he makes a pact with a masked demon, Hoji, who aids him and explains that the sword Lo Wang is searching for is actually made up of 3 swords and is the only thing capable of killing immortal demons. The relationship between Lo Wang and Hoji is a cliched one. Expect something along the lines of a buddy cop movie. Lo Wang acts like an 80s action star, complete with one-liners, while Hoji's there to make fun of him every step of the way. It's not an original relationship, but it works, and it helps prevent the game from becoming a lonely experience. Shadow Warrior is around 15 hours long. If it were nothing but 15 hours of arena combat against demons, it would outstay its welcome. It also helps that the banter between the two characters is genuinely funny and well written.
It's time.
What are you doing?
Did you ever watch Kung Fu?
What?
Taxi Driver?
We're in a little hurry, remember?
All the best heroes shave their heads.
Travis Bickle is a good guy now?
Close enough.
Listen, Chianji, who says you're the hero here?
You did. You said every hero.
I know, but any yahoo can shave his head. This is unearned baldness.
What can I say? I live in hope.
The most surprising thing about the reboot is the story. Shooters in the old days had no plot. You ran around, you collected keycards, and you killed shit. That was it. What else do you need? Despite being full of pop culture references and having coarse humor, the story here is deep and tragic. A lot of it is influenced from Japanese mythology. Hoji's a masked demon who is exiled from his realm for reasons he can't even remember. You encounter these creatures called Whisperers, who are physical manifestations of memories immortal demons try to erase, and then you relive them through these beautifully animated cutscenes. I was just expecting a game about penis jokes. What I got was a well-told, memorable, and tragic story. The weapon selection is similar to the original game. Some have been combined for simplicity's sake, such as the katana and shurikens. Others, like the dual machine guns, are unlocked via purchasable upgrades. There are 3 different collectible resources that are used for upgrades. Money is found lying around in storage containers and is used to upgrade weapons and buy ammunition. Karma is gained by a rating at the end of a combat session. Your performance is scored from 1 to 5 stars and is based on how stylishly you dispatch your enemies while also avoiding damage. Karma is used for sword skills and passive bonuses to health, damage, and other categories. Lastly, chi crystals are used for magic spells. The combat is flashy, visceral, and absolutely fun. There is a much bigger emphasis on melee combat than there was in the original. In the 1997 classic, the katana was solely used for those instances where you ran out of ammunition. In the reboot, the katana is overpowered as hell. It's pretty much your primary weapon. For a good portion of Shadow Warrior, there is little reason to use anything else except for the katana. It doesn't help that there's a lack of enemy and weapon variety early on. You're limited to the revolver, SMG, and crossbow for the first few hours. Most of the weapons are piss weak in their default form, and require a lot of money to upgrade before they start being of any use whatsoever. The swarms of melee demons that are encountered early on can easily be dispatched with just a few katana slashes. The only time when switching to a ranged weapon is necessary is to take out the flying demons. Also, magic spells and sword skills have no cooldown whatsoever. There is a stamina bar, but it is only applied to sprinting, not to sword swinging. Everything is spammable to your heart's content. Occasionally, greater demons are encountered that serve as mini-bosses. These folks range from big minotaurs that shoot fireballs at you and try to grab you, to shielded necromancers that raise an army of the undead, to charging enemies that only take damage via a weak spot on their back, so on and so forth. Finally, enemies that require a bit more than simply mashing left click to kill. The combat starts to shine about halfway through the game. At that point, the previously mentioned mini-bosses will frequently accompany the hordes of cannon fodder that you've grown accustomed to slicing and dicing. I was finally forced to switch between weapons and actually use some of my magic spells. However, at the same time, I began to realize just how clunky and unresponsive the controls are. The 1 through 9 keys are for selecting weapons. That is completely standard. Left click is primary attack, right click is secondary. That's also standard. The katana slice is dependent on the direction of your movement. Walking backwards does an upward slice, walking forwards does a downward slice. That's also standard. However, let's take a look at the sword skills and the magic spells. This is when things start to get tricky. To activate a sword skill, you need to double tap a direction and then press left click. For spells, it's the same thing except you press right click instead. You can also cast spells and attack at the same time. Now please remember that this game plays like an arena shooter that throws hordes of enemies at you. There is no regenerating health, there is no cover system, and your katana is your primary weapon. Want to heal yourself? Sure, double tap right and hold down right mouse button. At the same time, you'll be forced to move to the right, which may fuck up either the directional slice of your katana or lead you straight into the path of a fireball or an exploding enemy. You can't cast spells while sprinting, but you can dash while casting spells. Are there separate keys for these actions? No, shift is used for both of them. 4 directional movement buttons are responsible for all of your combat actions. That's fucking ridiculous. Many of the inputs will constantly come into conflict with one another. Your actions are either going to be delayed or simply not work at all. I don't understand, why couldn't they have bound the spell keys to fucking like Z, X, C, and V? Double tap those and then press right mouse button to cast it. At least I would still have control of my character. Even when fully upgraded, most of the weapons remain fuck all useless. The crossbow fires 1 bolt at a time and has a piss poor firing rate. The shotgun can only hold 4 shells and takes an eternity to reload. You have a better chance of tickling the demons to death than you do by killing them with a flamethrower. You know there's a problem with your combat system when double tapping left or right and pressing left click is enough to instantly kill 7 or 8 demons that are swarmed around you, while it takes an eternity to kill things with a shotgun. The only guns that I ended up using were the rocket launcher for the huge greater demons, the SMG if I'd ever run out of rocket launcher ammo, and occasionally the revolver because, to be honest, shooting like a cowboy looks cool and it feels awesome. Another thing to take note is how the upgrade system breaks the flow of the game. Karma points are gained quickly through combat encounters. Chi crystals are found in either blatantly obvious areas or secrets, and money is found literally everywhere. Whenever you have an upgrade point to spend, the game nags you with annoying pop-up messages, and of course the only way to make these disappear is to spend those points. The problem is that these points are gained frequently. It breaks the pacing and the flow of the game, having to pause after every couple of encounters just to put my skill points in. I want to kick ass, I don't care about these fucking level ups, but I'm forced to, since the difficulty in some ways is inflated artificially by having the same wimpy demons suddenly chunking for lots of health while taking less damage as you get further and further into the game. In Flying Wild Hog's previous game, Hard Reset, after each arena encounter you'd come across a checkpoint that had an upgrade station. There you would spend your money upgrading your weapons or your passive attributes. In Shadow Warrior, you just press U. That's it, that's all you have to do. You press U and you're taken straight to the upgrade menu. Not only can you unlock new skills in the middle of a battle, but you can also refill your fucking ammunition. How does that make any sense? Oh, there's a couple of boss fights thrown in here and there, but they're disappointing. They took the same approach as they did in Hard Reset. They throw you up against this enormous, awesome looking boss, but all you have to do is just shoot at its glowing weak spots. As far as the level design goes, they try to take the old school shooter approach while modernizing and streamlining it. In the old days, the level structure of a shooter was a maze. You had to find the exit, but to do that, you'd have to find keys that would open up various locked doors. The maps were non-linear in their structure. You could go wherever you wanted to, and you had a map in case you got lost. Secret areas were very common, and you were rewarded for exploring the area. Shadow Warrior takes the modern approach of level design in the sense that levels are a long, linear corridor. However, they feel like a very wide corridor. Crysis 2's design is the most comparable one that comes to mind. There is this illusion of openness due to their rather large nature, but if you attempt to go anywhere that isn't the main path, you're going to run into a dead end. Thankfully, Shadow Warrior has a ton of secrets. There is also small explorable side areas that contain either bonus loot or collectible fortune cookies, which are filled with crude jokes. Each level took me around 40 minutes to beat with few secrets discovered, so there's definitely good stuff hidden throughout. Instead of having multiple locked doors with keys to discover, you'll come across a single locked one that will open up after 3 magical power sources are destroyed. These scenarios are sometimes done fine, other times are done poorly, and when they're done poorly, they're fucking done poorly and require a metric ton of dull as fuck backtracking. Here's some examples. Early on, there's a level that takes place in a rural Japanese village. Once you reach the end of it, you discover that the exit is blocked by one of these magical seals. You pick up a key and you have the joy of walking backwards through the entire fucking level, finding locked gates, and finding those seals to break. About halfway through, there's a level that takes place in a harbor. The goal is to board a ship. The level starts off next to an electrified fence that is blocking the objective. So you walk from one end to the other, turn the power off, then you walk all the way back, blah blah blah. Another level near the end, there's this huge circular room that ends up being an arena. After clearing it, the exit is blocked by 3 seals. Despite there being several unlocked doors around, you can only enter through the one the game allows you to. So you go through the door, you break a seal, you come back in the arena, you fight another huge group of monsters, you go on the next door, rinse and repeat. Essentially, you go from point A to point B, then back to point A, and back to point B, while unlocking extra areas of the map. Not only is the backtracking annoying, but so is having to refight a bunch of enemies in areas that you just fucking cleared a few minutes ago. Shadow Warrior lacks a map system, and most of the assets are reused through the level. In the rural sections, the interior of every house is the same. The forests outside all look the same. They're very easy to get lost in. Once you finally get onto the ship in the harbor level that I mentioned previously, it's a boring mess to navigate through, as it's only empty corridors and stairs. Where's the kitchen? Where are the living quarters? Where's the beds? Where's anything? There's nothing here. It's just copy-pasted corridor after corridor and an occasional staircase. Backtracking wasn't a pain in the old shooters because those levels lasted for 15 to 20 minutes. Here levels last for 40. Thankfully there are 17 chapters and these segments are not that frequent. Still, they're common enough to be a nuisance. That being said, no two levels look alike. They all have their own unique environment and atmosphere. And some of them, like the Japanese villages and the snowy mountains, are absolutely beautiful to look at. The graphics are very nice, especially when you take into account that the developer and publisher are, for all intents and purposes, indie studios. The optimization is questionable. If you have any issues running the game, disable mirrors. That one setting alone gave me a larger difference in frame rate than going from ultra to low on every single setting. It's ridiculous. I don't know what the hell happened here. Lastly, some final minor complaints. There are a ton of invisible walls in Shadow Warrior, but they're not very well walled out. Anytime you attempt to take shortcuts to bypass parts of the level or just try to explore in areas you were never meant to, you simply die immediately without any reason. There are also some clipping issues here and there with the terrain. However, these problems are things you won't run into unless you go out looking for them, but still, in a more polished game, these things would not exist. Despite all the criticism I have towards the unbalanced combat and the questionable level design, I had an absolute blast with Shadow Warrior, and I view it as a good game. While you've been listening to me criticize areas of it, you've also been watching footage of what looks like extremely fun, violent combat. It really is. It's visceral, it's violent, it's meaty, it's extremely satisfying. The closest comparison would be Soldier of Fortune, where you could blow off people's body parts and shit. In Shadow Warrior, you can cut demons in half, cut their arms off, their legs off, their heads off, whatever. It's beautiful. Lesser demons start cowering in fear after witnessing you slice their allies into pieces. Demons with missing limbs will limp around the battlefield. Greater demons can be decapitated and their heads can be used to fire a giant fucking laser beam. Gathering kill streaks and chaining combos together can sometimes enrage nearby demons. These demons gain an enormous amount of damage reduction, as well as a huge increase to their movement speed. Don't be surprised when later on in the game, after wiping out a group of enemies, that the next ones who are going to be charged at you will all be enraged. Another huge plus is that there is no regenerating health. While you do have access to a healing spell, it does not heal you fully, so health packs are still important. As unbalanced as the combat is, especially with the overpowered katana, it is still the highlight of the game and is alone enough to carry it. While yes, having poor weapon balance in a combat-only game is a sign of a huge error done by the developer, it doesn't change the fact that decapitating 7 enemies around you instantly and having the entire screen filled with blood and gore and guts never gets old. They got everything right with the katana, I just wish they got everything else right as well. If the 15-hour length is not enough, you can replay it on a harder difficulty via New Game Plus, which retains all of your skills and upgrades. It's impossible to unlock everything on your first playthrough, so this gives you a chance to do that as well as look for more secrets and fortune tokens. Additionally, there is a bonus survivor mode that comes with 3 maps. I still consider Serious Sam 3 to be a better throwback, and I still consider the original Shadow Warrior to having superior balance and level design. But this reboot is a breath of fresh air and a much needed addition to a genre that is currently knee-deep in shit. Shadow Warrior takes a while to get rolling. The pacing is a little too slow for my taste, but once you become introduced to every enemy type and acquire every weapon, the game becomes a delightful, chaotic playground of gore, chaos, and destruction. Shadow Warrior is not a perfect reimagining of the 90s shooter, but it's damn close. I'm Private Hudson. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.
Eye of the tiger, Hoji. Eye of the tiger.
You know he loses in that first movie, right?
But he gets the girl.